Rise of the Underdogs. The battle they were never meant to win against all odds. They were outnumbered 50-1. No reinforcements, no backup, just a ragtag group of villagers, farmers, and deserters, armed with rusted rifles and undying grit. As the sun broke over the mountain ridge, it revealed an enemy force that seemed endless, armored in steel and confidence. The rebels had nothing but the land beneath their boots and a cause burning hotter than fear: survival. They knew this would likely be their last sunrise. But instead of surrender, they dug in, booby-trapping the terrain, positioning snipers, and drawing blood-red lines in the dirt. This wasn't just a fight, it was defiance. A whisper turned roar: "We will not kneel." The enemy laughed at their numbers. But legends are never born from safety. They rise from ashes. The spark was lit. The underdogs were ready. The enemy breached the outer line, finally forcing the rebels into direct combat. But what they found inside wasn't fear. It was fury. The trenches roared with primal chaos. Bayonets clashed, blades slashed, fists landed like thunder. This was no clean war. It was intimate, ugly, and soaked in rage. The rebels fought like possessed warriors, faces painted in ash, battle cries drowning out gunfire. One woman wielded dual machetes like a dance of death. A teenager dropped from a rooftop to take out an elite captain with a sharpened shovel. In that moment, status, gear, and numbers meant nothing. This was soul versus steel, and the soul was winning. The enemy was rattled. This wasn't the quick extermination they'd expected. It was a brawl that clawed at their confidence. And as the rebels held the line, one truth became clear. When you back survivors into a corner, they become monsters. The air shattered as mortar fire lit up the sky. Trees snapped like toothpicks. The ground erupted in geysers of dirt and flame. It was the enemy's opening blow, meant to crush morale, break formation, and end the battle in minutes. But the rebels had seen hell before. They'd built their defenses beneath layers of rock and smoke. As chaos exploded around them, they countered with precision. Sniper rounds zipped from camouflaged ridges, taking out enemy officers. Molotovs rained from cliff sides. Traps triggered, swallowing tanks in pits of spikes. What the enemy thought was panic was actually a planned illusion. Every step forward cost them blood. The rebels were ghosts in the dust, striking and vanishing. This wasn't suicide, it was strategy. They'd studied the enemy, learned their prideful patterns, and now they were bleeding them dry. The myth of invincibility had a crack. The underdogs were turning pain into purpose. Against every prediction, the enemy started falling back. Their front ranks were collapsing, confused, leaderless, rattled. Explosives planted deep behind their lines now erupted, slicing supply routes, severing communications. One rebel sniper took out 4 enemy commanders in under 30 seconds. Panic spread like wildfire. And speaking of fire, fuel tanks ignited behind enemy lines, turning their own camp into an inferno. The underdogs struck from shadows and smoke, each hit breaking morale and shattering formations. The enemy came expecting an easy kill. Instead, they were caught in a trap of genius-level guerrilla warfare. These weren't just rebels. They were tacticians, hunters, survivors. What started as a desperate defense became a full-blown counterattack. For the first time, the enemy was running. And in the blaze of battle, the impossible was happening. The underestimated had become the unstoppable. The tide was turning, and it was flooding with vengeance. Night fell, but the battle never paused. It only got quieter and deadlier. Enemy units regrouped in the canyon, assuming the worst was over. Then the snipers began, hidden in hollowed trees, camouflaged among rocks. The rebels struck with surgical silence. Each shot was a death sentence. Panic erupted. Soldiers fired wildly into darkness, unsure where death was hiding. Drones were jammed. Night vision failed. The underdogs didn't need tech. They had terrain, timing, and terror. These were their hills, their shadows. And tonight, those shadows hunted. Every bullet was vengeance for lost families, for torched villages, for a world that turned its back on them. The enemy thought themselves wolves, but now they were sheep in rebel crosshairs. The battlefield fell into an eerie stillness, broken only by the whistle of a final bullet. The message was clear. This war belonged to the ghosts of resistance. This was it. Redemption Hill, the last enemy bastion, heavily fortified, heavily armed. But the rebels had momentum and fury. The final charge wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. As dawn broke once again, they surged with all they had left: blood, grit, broken bones, and burning hearts. With every step uphill, bullets tore through air, but the rebels kept climbing. Explosives detonated, walls shattered. One by one, they breached every line. The enemy commander, arrogant to the end, stood alone, only to fall to a blade carved from scrap metal. The battle ended not with a flag raised, but with silence. A stunned, deafening silence. The underdogs had done the unthinkable. They didn't just survive, they triumphed. On a hill soaked with sacrifice, they reclaimed their place in history. Not as rebels, not as victims, but as victors. The world would call it a miracle, but it wasn't luck. It was courage, strategy, sacrifice, and unity. These rebels were supposed to lose. Every analyst, every map, every statistic said this was a doomed fight. But they changed the script. They rewrote the ending. Their story spread like wildfire, across borders, across platforms, across hearts. It became legend. The rise of the underdogs wasn't just about one battle. It was about the power of the underestimated, the will of the forgotten, the fire of the cornered, and the warning it etched in blood. Never dismiss those with nothing left to lose, because that's when they become unstoppable. Like echoes through time, this victory will never fade. It's a story told in whispers and roars. Subscribe to Timeless Legend for more true tales of defiance, valor, and history's forgotten heroes.